bés yu neex sama xel dem ca fama jóge woo yenn saay sama xel dem ci nit ñu baax ñamu seetaloon ngir mënu fàtte ki la yaataloon ki la mayoon on nous jamais yenn saay ci sama bés yu neex sama xel dem ca fama jóge woo yenn saay sama xel dem ci nit ñu baax ñamu seetaloon ngir mënu fàtte ki la yaataloon ki la mayoon on nous jamais yenn saay ci sama bés yu neex sama xel dem ca fama jóge woo yenn saay sama xel dem ci nit ñu baax ñamu seetaloon ngir mënu fàtte ki la yaataloon ki la mayoon on nous jamais yenn saay ci sama bés yu neex sama xel dem ca fama jóge woo yenn saay sama xel dem ci nit ñu baax ñamu seetaloon ngir mënu fàtte ki la yaataloon ki la mayoon on nous jamais yenn saay ci sama bés yu neex sama xel dem ca fama jóge woo yenn saay sama xel dem ci nit ñu baax ñamu seetaloon ngir mënu fàtte ki la yaataloon ki la mayoon on nous jamais yenn saay ci sama bésu neex sama xel dem ca fama jóge.
Welcome to today's webinar, jointly hosted by AFREhealth and ScholarRx on the topic of creating shared health professional education in Africa. My name is Farzan Ali, and I'm an international senior consultant with ScholarRx. We will be discussing the development of shared medical education curriculum exchange platform on today's webinar and how it can empower the community of practices in limited resource country settings and promoting interprofessional education and help addressing the international shortage of healthcare workforce. We'll be also sharing with you the experiences in developing a shared community of practice at University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda and how this may have further future direction can set up in the scaling the shared open access education in Africa. Today we have two speakers with us. Dr. Tao Li is an internationally recognized expert in digital learning, medical licensing exam prep, and student engagement in medical education. Dr. Li earned his medical degree at University of California, San Francisco, trained in internal medicine at Yale New Haven Hospital, and completed an allergy and immunology fellowship and master's in health sciences at Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Li has authored over 40 textbooks, including the first 8 for the board series. He is currently Chief of Adult Allergy Immunology at the University of Louisville and Chief Education Officer of ScholarRx, a global education platform for shared education curriculum, medical curriculum. The second speaker we have today is Dr. Robert Ojiambo. He's the chair of the Division of Basic Sciences at University of Global Health and Equity, Rwanda. He's part of the team implementing the innovative medical education curriculum with other colleagues at UGHE. Previously, Dr. Ojiambo was involved in training thousands of medical doctors in Kenya for nearly 20 years. Most recently, he was the head of physiology and senior lecturer at the School of Medicine, Moi University, Kenya. With over 30 publications in the broader area of lifestyle physiology and health, Dr. Ojiambo holds a PhD in integrated biology from the University of Glasgow. His interest includes the innovative learning and approaches in medical education, especially in emerging use of educational technologies to foster active student engagement and lifelong learning. Without further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Tao Li, to share with you the concept of medical education curriculum exchange. Over to you, Tao.
Thank you, Farzan. I really appreciate the introduction. I just want to do a quick check to make sure, Farzan, that the audience can see my screen.
Yeah, you can see the screen.
Okay, wonderful. Again, it's really an honor to be able to speak to the AFREhealth community. I want to, thank in particular Professor Elsie Kagula-Mawadi and the Executive Director, Georgina Yegwal for engaging with us and inviting us to address the community. And we hope to share some of our ideas about how we can further support and strengthen the AFREhealth community of practice, one brick at a time, which is the title of my my short talk. So again, I'm Chief Education Officer, ScholarRx, and Associate Clinical Professor at University of Louisville, and been in education for over 30 years. ScholarRx itself, has a mission to build a healthier world together, and that's really the key operative word through accessible, sustainable health education for all. We work with over 90 institutional partners across the globe. In many countries that we have a particular strength in North America. We serve over 150,000 learners in our ecosystems, either directly through the ScholarRx platform or through some of the work that we do in publishing with McGraw-Hill, including the first date for the U.S. Millie series. And there, the students are heavily engaged, with our texts, including 90 million pages a year. But they're more or less shifting digitally where our platform delivers over 70 million learning activities each year and growing. Our platform has a lot of components to it. I'll be brief. It has an assessment component, typically used for formative assessment and mid-stakes summative assessment, performance analytics, instructional content, which are the bricks that I will talk about, a content creation library, and mechanisms in a platform for sharing. So that's just a little bit about us. And before I go into sharing, I'd love to learn a little bit more about the community that's out there. So if you could just simply in the chat, just say where you're from and what your involvement in health professions education is, that would be lovely. And also, if you have any questions about what you hope to learn from this discussion, that would help guide where Robert and I might focus the next 15 minutes. But where you're from and your involvement or interest in education, that would be very helpful context for us. So I'll keep an eye out on the chat as will Farzan. Great, thank you. Research excellence, wonderful, from South Africa. So please, any other responses would be helpful. But in the meantime, I'm going to go back to the theme of sharing. Sharing is something that we think about, as a human value that we share from the very beginning. As you see children, for example, children sharing toys. And one thing that we often ask is, should schools and organizations share education and curriculum with each other? And given the limited time, if you want to, please feel free to respond. But invariably, most educators would say yes, we should share. But then I ask if they are sharing and how are they sharing? Then that's generally where we have challenges, and that's something that we want to address. The chair of my advisory board, Dr. Charles Prober, who is here with us, and very, very grateful that he's spending a little bit of time from us, from Stanford University. We thought long and hard about the ideas of sharing, and in fact wrote a paper about a proposal for a shared curricular ecosystem for health professions education, where we observed that health professions education often occurs in silos. There's not enough collaboration, and this just simply is not efficient. And we felt that if we could conceive and develop what we call a global shared curricular ecosystem based on common standards, that we could democratize access to education, promote interprofessional education, transprofessional education, address workforce shortage training situations, and really decentralize the learning and teaching globally so that everybody would have access to these tools, and not just the powerful few, whether they be publishers or high resource organizations and institutions. This really needs to be in the hands of everyone. And again, I'm looking here and I'm seeing folks from Uganda, DRC, Ghana. So these are absolutely where we want to be operating. And a big part of that is supporting open education resource, which is a type of open access, but much more powerful. It's been around for many decades, and you might know it through other names such as open access or free open access medical education, and it supports what's called the 5 R's. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but it's something that is well recognized. It's supported by UNESCO. They have policy statements and policy guides to implement at the country level, at the institutional level, OER. And when we think about OER, it's more than just open access. It's the ability to retain your own copies, to reuse, to revise, remix, and redistribute. So it's very powerful if you can fulfill all the components of OER, and that's what we strive to do. And at the end of the day, it's really about supporting a community of practice, which is what AFREhealth kind of represents, a community that has found connectedness and belonging with each other, either at the country level, at the individual level, at the institutional level, where each institution, individual, organization can develop active and meaningful role and can develop opportunities for both individual and organizational and institutional and pan-continental empowerment, where where the impact is greater than the sum of the parts. So that leads us to RxBricks. So RxBricks is our expression of an ecosystem. It's in this learning ecosystem, everyone is all the asynchronous learning activities are developed in the form of a brick module. A brick module is an omnimedia authoring container that can support text, multimedia, videos, interactivities, even simple simulation. It's designed from the ground up to support OER, and by default, when somebody creates, when one of our partners creates a brick, a learning brick like this, it is actually by default it's OER, and you'll notice that I have multiple bricks, and the idea, just like Lego bricks, the toys that you may be familiar with, if you have enough of these Lego bricks, you can build almost any type of learning scenario you want, or much like a child or children can build almost any toy they want quickly and easily with enough of the right bricks, and that's what we strive to do. In addition, we recognize that only 5% of the world speaks English natively or fluently. And so, we think very hard about multilingual support and AI translation. So the role is that, the educator should be more of an architect and not a brick maker. So, they shouldn't be reinventing the wheel every day. There are plenty of education resources out there on many topics, but it just needs to be in a format that we can reuse. And that's what the brick helps accomplish. And the idea is that the educator can go into a collection of bricks, choose what they need to study and teach and modify what they have to. And then if there's missing something, then they could create a brick. And a brick is a blank instructional template in this brick where they can insert their educational content in a instructionally sound way. When they do this, they can use it for any topic that is fast moving, late breaking, or evolving rapidly, or not well covered by in other places. And you can see, you can put in the learning objectives, you can put in your learning content, it can accept PowerPoints, images, videos, assessments, and so forth. And then the magical thing, the revolutionary thing, is that once that's out there as an open access resource, then others can then modify and reuse it. So for example, the educators in Tanzania can then clone and modify this and then republish it with just changing what they need to be specific and contextual for Tanzania, but then be able to have direct attribution back to the original Rwandan authors, so everybody benefits. As I mentioned, we support multiple languages. Here's Spanish, but we also support Spanish, French, and Portuguese, for the Francophone and all the countries in Africa that support them. But we also support 100 other languages as well, at least at the authoring level. So including things like Swahili, and that includes translation in the assessments. And each of our partner organization is allowed to have their own portal where they can create and share education. So if AFREhealth finds it useful, they can borrow these bricks from the University of North Carolina, which has a national and international group that teaches and creates education research in population health, health system science, and epidemiology, and it's all open access. And when you can see that, the institution is credited at the very top, but when it's cloned and modified, then that institution goes to the top, but with attribution back to Africa. So for example, if UGHE finds this brick to be useful, they can use it freely. They can contextualize to Rwanda. When they publish it, they'll say UGHE at the top, but then with direct attribution back to the University of North Carolina. And so that's how you start linking your community members together. This is just to simply show the enormous growth in our community, 90 partners that are creating bricks that are vetted and reviewed. The blue bars represent all the cloning and modification of existing bricks. The orange bars represent all the publishing of new bricks. And you can see just over the last year, the enormous growth in just the new bricks, such that there is now over 600 open access bricks in our ecosystem created by you, our global community, to complement the 900 bricks that we have already developed. And it's growing fast. And by next year, we expect to be the minority publisher on our own platform, which is what I think a healthy community does. And this is actually where this all occurs on this open exchange, where institutions can publish their bricks and organizations can publish their bricks, and where educators can come and find open access bricks or bricks that fit their needs to use. I know we're short on time, but so I'll just spend a couple more minutes just talking about our philosophy about global inclusivity and support of LMICs and the Global South. We very much believe in equitable empowerment, and we work with organizations on several continents to do that. Obviously, you'll hear from Robert in just a little bit about our partnership, the UGEG's partnership with us, and where that may go. I'll quickly just mention a couple of words about our work in Asia with HiVN. HiVN is the Health Advancement in Vietnam Partnership supported by Harvard Medical School and Beth Israel Deaconess and Brigham and Women's Hospital. There we are working directly with medical schools in support with the support of the health ministry to accelerate curricular transformation through sharing and collaboration. And so we did a pilot study, an acceptance pilot study that recruited faculty from multiple and students from multiple medical schools. We trained them on how to develop bricks, and you can see that they are able to author Vietnamese first bricks into the ecosystem. They're also able to clone and annotate as well too. And you can see that they are doing it in the Vietnamese language, where 80% of their education occurs. It's a multimedia experience, and then you can see that there is good learner satisfaction. Anything above a 3 on the Likert scale is positive, and also strong educator satisfaction as well too, in terms of being able to use and being able to participate in this community of practice. And so that's a very brief overview. You all know this proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's what we truly believe, and we hope that there's an opportunity to do that with AFREhealth. So with that, I will finish. I know we're running behind, but so I'll ask Farzan for guidance on whether we take questions here or go to the next presentation.
Thank you, Tao. I think we should switch to presentation from Robert, and then we can maybe ask the audience at the end, just to have. And feel free to type any questions in the chat box, so we can ask them, at the end of the presentation. But I think let's just continue with the Robert's presentation, and then we can, at the end, hopefully we'll have some time to catch up on questions.
Thank you.
Over to you, Robert. Your mic is mute, Robert.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yep.
thank you very much. And thanks, Tao. So I'm here to discuss our experiences with ScholarRx at UGH and the concept of the shared curriculum that Dr. Tao has elaborated. So UGH is a relatively new medical school, an initiative of Partners in Health, and we run an innovative medical education curriculum. We offer a dual degree, so our students actually get an MBBS as well as a master's in global health delivery at the end of a 7-year program. And as you can see here, the program has actually several phases. We have the prep phase. We have the foundations phase in year 1, 2, and 3. We also have the clinical and health delivery phase, year 3 to 5, and then of course year 5 to 7. an exploration and development phase. Throughout these years, you can see this early clinical exposure that is then progressively increased as they mature into clinicians. When our experience basically with the ScholarRx bricks is in the basic medical education curriculum, and our curriculum is actually modular and system-based. We deliver this curriculum in an integrated fashion, so it is integrated horizontally. What that means is that the basic sciences of anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, microbiology, pathology, and pharmacology are actually taught within a module or a system. And then, of course, we have vertical integration, meaning that we have clinical correlates, and we use simulations to integrate the basic sciences with the clinical sciences as early as year one. Again, when we're talking of innovative medical education, because we actually aim for excellence in medical education, so we looked around and realized that these open education resources that offer digital multimedia content, and looking out there, we found that ScholarRx is one of the providers that is able to give us this resource relatively freely. And that ScholarRx, as we've learned from Tao, is a digital platform usually offered with the United States medical licensing examination format. These bricks, as you've seen, are actually system-based. So we have several systems. We have several systems. So we have, for instance, cardiovascular system has, within this system, you have 99 bricks that should be covered in 25 hours. So this is what students would be seeing. So this is student-facing. What you realize from these bricks is that they're actually high yield. So an entire system is actually condensed within 25 hours. Not all those bricks are freely accessible. Some you'll need a license to access. But we have others, as you can see here. I just put this here for illustration. You can see that we have, for instance, general microbiology is freely accessible. But for endocrine or GIT, then you'll need a specific license to access this brick. These bricks, from our experience, are actually have certain features that allow us to customize their use. So they allow for annotation, meaning that we can take a component of the brick and not just deliver the entire brick to our students. We are able to freely distribute these bricks through our learning management system, which is Canvas. And then, of course, in pursuit of excellence in medical education, these bricks allow for student-centered learning. So because they have a lot of formative tests that our students then can do, and then they get their results, and then they can be able to assess where they're at in their training. So like I mentioned, these bricks, the platform allows you to create bricks, and then these bricks then become open access. We are able to participate in brick authoring, and this, of course, fosters the shared curriculum. There's within the ScholarRx platform, you'll find this brick exchange tab, and this brick exchange tab is where I think you are able to actually create this shared ecosystem of digital content that is freely accessible, and then that promotes a community of practice of medical educators. For instance, a colleague at UGH basically created this brick on gluconeogenesis. He's a biochemist, and he basically created this brick when he was conducting a training at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia to train colleagues there on how to actually create bricks and then share content together. So from the faculty-facing side, this is what we would see when we are interacting, when we are interfacing with ScholarRx. There's robust faculty support What that means is that when we're using these bricks, we may have some technical issues that we need support from ScholarRx, and this is provided. ScholarRx also provides us with training. There's faculty office hours that allows for additional training on how to maximize usage of the bricks, usage of other offerings on the platform like QMAX. There is peer education as well. So we have users of ScholarRx meeting and agreeing on or basically discussing their experiences with ScholarRx. We also get matrices on student usage and performance. So as a faculty member, you're able to see how students are actually using the bricks and how they're doing. And that also is useful for feedback. So you can tell where students are actually struggling or where you should actually focus. And then, of course, for us at UGHE being in LMIC, we actually get discounted licensing since we are actually a non-profit. That would be relevant for most of the countries in Africa. So I would want to discuss our experience. We've actually used ScholarRx since 2019 through 2024. We are still currently using ScholarRx. So we have 5 years experience. How we use these bricks, we typically assign them in all 15 basic medical sciences modules that this basically reflects the systems that we cover progressively. And in our use, I think ScholarRx was critical in supporting our online learning during the COVID pandemic. It's one of the digital resources we used that allowed us to then continue our education uninterrupted. So, like I mentioned, we have our learning management system, Canvas, and the way we utilize this resource for any of the topics, again, this would be student-facing. The faculty, when creating Canvas pages, would actually use available resources we have. So as you can see here, we have 2 resources. We have Osmosis, as well as ScholarRx. And depending on faculty preferences, we assign content so that our students can then review this prior to coming into the classroom. I also want to discuss the concept of shared curriculum that Dr. Tao has elaborated earlier. So for us, when we're actually utilizing ScholarRx, we get the opportunity to author, bricks, as you saw. We also have the opportunity to act as reviewers of those bricks, as well as editors. So from time to time, you may get invited to actually review an authored brick or even edit. And then, like I mentioned, we have the faculty forum that allows faculty users to meet and exchange ideas on ScholarRx. Again, to support the shared curriculum, ScholarRx has certain grants that promote brick building. So for instance, we have this ScholarRx Brick Builder Grant. I'll talk about this in a moment. And then, of course, again, to promote excellence in medical education, we have the ScholarRx Merit Grant. So as far as the Brick Builder Grant is concerned, and for audience, just to alert them that this grant is still open. So for this grant, it allows students as well as faculty to apply and actually build a grant. And there's some funding to promote this activity. So students basically team up with a faculty member to co-author a grant. This allows, especially for neglected medical education topics, this would be a good opportunity to participate and author a useful brick that can then be shared with others. Then we have the Medical Education Research and Innovation Grant, MERIC Award. We've been fortunate to actually, this is a competitive grant, and we actually were fortunate to win this grant in 2020 to examine the utility of using this low-cost undergraduate digital medical education resource to support undergraduate curriculum in Rwanda. And again, in 2022, we won this grant, looking at how ScholarRx can support the establishment of an academic teaching district hospital in Rwanda while optimizing its utilization in basic sciences teaching. We've had a chance to disseminate our findings. For instance, we published this abstract in the Lancet Global Health, where we looked at the applicability of ScholarRx in a low-cost settings, meaning low-resource settings, how you can actually deploy this resource to support the medical curriculum. We also shared these findings at CUGH conference in 2020, and then based from our experience, using ScholarRx, I think we can confidently report that these bricks are generally well accepted by Rwandan medical students, but more importantly, that they offer a viable, low-cost curricular option in Africa, and the emphasis is actually low cost. For this resource to be deployed in Africa, obviously, UGH is a unique medical school. It is in Africa, it is a low resource setting, but we are fortunate to have a very robust IT infrastructure. So for this to be applicable in other LMIC settings, I believe that it would require a robust IT infrastructure. What we mean here is that the broadband must be stable and sufficient. Obviously, you must have good hardware, laptops. For us at UGH, each student has a laptop. So what that means is that for it to be deployed in most of African medical institutions, we need to provide these facilities to our students. The beauty is that there's equity-based pricing for LMICs, and we can discuss with Dr. Tao here how that applies to most of the countries in Africa. I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert, for the presentation. We will now open the forum for the discussion, and in fact, we have received a few questions in the chat box already. So first question, Tao, is a question on why some BRIC courses need a license for access. So you wanna take this question?
Yes. So as I mentioned, certain parts of our platform are open access. So the BRIC authoring and the shared curricular exchange is open access. So to fund that and to support the digital technology that underlies all that, and also including some of the content, some of the BRICs have a license fee. We work with a number of schools that use that for their day-to-day curriculum, and the fees from their contribution into the platform, it keeps the platform open for everyone else. And it's our commitment that we would work with any institution regardless of their financial situation. So in a way, what's going on, another way to look at it is that we do have a number of schools, particularly in high resource countries, that are essentially subsidizing this platform for our LMIC partners, who may be a little less resourced, and they either contribute what they can, or they use our open access resources, of which, as I mentioned, there are already over 600 open access BRICs in the ecosystem, plus the ability to use an enterprise strength authoring system, at no cost, to create open access education, to share and collaborate with the community of practice. I hope that that helps explain our sustainability model.
Thank you, Tao. There's a question on the copyright implications and the distribution of using material content within the ScholarRx, within the BRICS, So you want to address that just to
Yeah,
Good.
so we have very robust digital rights management, in the BRICS platform, depending on how we work with it, either a school or an umbrella organization such as AFREhealth. The digital rights management allows us to apply either full copyright protection, just like a commercial printer or a commercial publisher like an Elsevier or a Wolters Kluwer does. All the way to open access public domain, essentially, using a Creative Commons license. The Creative Commons license that we automatically apply to an open access brick for educators that are using our open access platform is Creative Commons CC BY SA 4.0, which is the identical license that is used in Wikipedia. And those rights are tracked from brick to brick, and also the derivatives of those bricks. So if you decide to clone a brick, it's because you actually have permission to do that. And normally the offspring, the child brick of the parent brick, typically inherits the digital rights of the parent brick. So something that is open access remains open access. Something that is, locked down with copyright typically remains locked down with copyright, except to the people that have permission to use that brick, either through a license or they've been provisioned with permission through another mechanism. So that's how we manage copyright and keep everyone safe.
Thank you, Tao. There is a question on, can I create my own bricks for my learners and institutions only? So you already answered in the chat, but I think it's better if you can just elaborate a little, that how learners, individuals as well as institutions can come on board.
Yes. So anybody can go into our open access platform and create a brick today, and then share that with your students. Like I said, it does automatically come with an open access license, and if you want to keep it private, then you just don't share it. However, the moment a student shares it with somebody else, then it's out there. It's just as if I created a PDF and I share it with my students, and then they share it with somebody else, then it's out there. We do have the ability to lock down a brick and only give it to the students at that institution, but it typically requires what's called an SSO integration. So that's a technical integration where we know who your students are. We know that they are at, for example, University of Global Health Equity, and only those students get access to that particular brick. But that requires, what's called a SSO integration. So it's just a bit of a piece of a technology, that allows us to know who that school is and that student is, and there is a cost to that, but that's typically how that's done.
Thank you, Tao. I just have I'm just looking at the chat. There's no more question, but feel free to ask any questions. We're open to the audience now, and
Right.
while we wait for more questions, I have one question for Robert. Robert, in your presentation, you shared some of your experiences, by sharing some of the content with other partner schools in Africa. So what is your experience has been from implementation point of view of ScholarRx at the UGHE, but more importantly, sharing that content in a different country within the continent?
Yeah, so my personal experience has been, in terms of implementing for undergraduate students, so just for teaching our medical students. In terms of sharing content with other partners, it was in the contents of training. So University of Addis Ababa Medical School, I wanted to learn about ScholarRx and how we are using it at UGHE. So colleagues traveled to Addis Ababa University and participated in a training, because then, of course, there's some elements of training that are required before you can actually effectively use the bricks. Yeah.
Okay. We're waiting for more questions.
Since we have the chair of my academic advisory board, Dr. Charles Prober from Stanford, I'm wondering, Dr. Prober, whether you would be willing to make a couple comments just globally, contextualizing our efforts and how it might be, where you think this, since you work in Africa so much as well too.
Thank you, Tao. I'm happy to be here, and it's amazing to see all of the people represented from, as I look at the chat, from Uganda, Zambia, Ghana, the DRC, South Africa, and of course, Rwanda, and perhaps there are more of you. And I'm also delighted to see a person I haven't met, Bongi from the United Kingdom, who maybe he'll speak up, who's involved, as I understand his comment, in health professional education in different parts of Africa and perhaps other continents. So I am all in on ScholarRx and the BRICS, not from a financial standpoint, but from an academic standpoint. Tao pointed out that we wrote a paper in academic medicine a number of years ago, basically trying to convince our colleagues that sharing is a good idea. And the colleagues that we're mostly directing it to at that moment were medical schools across the United States and Canada, which are number about 300. And I was, from my point of view, and at the time I was Senior Associate Dean overseeing medical education at Stanford University. From my point of view, I found it quite sad that medical schools across North America don't share very well. They each create their own version of a curriculum for their own students, but don't actually share with other institutions those educational objects that could benefit students in other universities. So very possessive of their own curriculum. And in my mind, that created many problems, one of which is simply a financial problem for the institutions of reinventing the wheel in each place. But the other problem is, I think it becomes confusing for students in different institutions to know exactly how their curriculum, their unique curriculum, matches what the national needs are. And ultimately, the national needs drive our students because they're ultimately going to practice not in those institutions they trained at, but somewhere else, often on the North American continent. And when I looked at that issue, and as I learned more about more global education, and one of my teachers was Abebe Bekele, who's the dean at UGHE, an amazing educator who many of you know. I chair his Dean's Advisory Committee in terms of the original curriculum development and the continuation of that. And it became clear that the problem of lack of collaboration was very acute also across the African continent and other places. And so my hook into ScholarRx, my passion about ScholarRx, is to take the collaborative spirit that we want to develop further in North America and use the resources to benefit medical education people across the globe. And I'm particularly inspired by Africa in the sense that there is so much interest in advancing medical education, and there seems to be much more cooperation present. And I think the ScholarRx process can really enhance that opportunity. And as I look at the questions that have been asked about opportunities for sharing and copyright and so forth, I think there could be different use cases in the different countries represented as the BRICS system continues to grow. And the last thing that I'll say that I'm enamored with ScholarRx is they've engaged medical students very broadly. And Tao or Robert could say more about that. But the number of medical students globally who are now contributing content and benefiting from the content is in the millions of students. And I am a very big fan of students helping their peers develop educational materials that can benefit their broad community, ultimately the community that we all care about. So congratulations on bringing these people together and bringing each other together. And I'd be happy to to answer other questions from my perspective at Stanford University. Back to you, Tao or Robert.
Thank you, Charles. We just had a comment from the audience that, that whether the recording will be available, and we just received the message as well that, the recording of this webinar will be available on AFREhealth's website, and so they can access to that. And
Very good. We still have some time left, so if there's any other questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute your mic or type a comment there. I did see Charles did mention that message something about again, the community of practice. So I'm wondering, if Professor Elsie and Ms. Georgina, I know we've had some conversations about where the needs are and so forth. Is there any perspectives you could share from your vantage point as leaders in AFREhealth about where the needs are and where the community could potentially collaborate to address these needs through a sharing mechanism like ours or anything else?
Thank you very much, Tao, and everybody. Thank you for sharing with AFREhealth your experiences. I'm Elsie Gulimarade. I'm the president of AFREhealth, and we've had several conversations with Tao, as he has said. And AFREhealth is an interprofessional organization, as you know, and one of our core mission is to bring us together and to collaborate and share. So that's why we are really interested in these kinds of arrangements where education material can be shared across continents and, of course, also regionally in Africa. And it's good to hear about the experience from UGHE. We've heard about this several times, and probably UGH is a good example, but also has some maybe what would be challenging to most of the rest of the medical schools, in that it is unique in that it has very good internet connections and better resource than most of the other medical schools in the region. But that does not stop us from getting examples from there. And I'm glad that they are collaborating with actually many other schools in the region. But from AFREhealth, why we will really want to have this kind of collaboration is to make sure that across the continent we can utilize whatever is available. And in most cases, we would like to see that it is is affordable, and also see that we can reach areas that do not have access to good internet connections specifically. And also, this is also appealing because of the large numbers of new medical schools that are coming up, and also large number that have large numbers of students. So this is really appealing for AFREhealth, and that's why we continue trying to interact with you and making sure that more people are on board and can use some of these, especially the free ones for the time being, but also those that can afford, those that can pay, can also have access. So thank you very much for coming, and we'll continue to interact with you and see how AFREhealth can probably use also its learning management system to see how we can link up with you and make these resources available to our members. Over to you, Georgina. I don't know if you have a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie. Just to add a few comments, as you indicated, we picked up the conversation with Taro after March when we met at UGH. And I must say that AFREhealth has a community of practice, which is the e-learning technical working group. And they were initially working with him. And we want to continue that collaboration through the e-learning technical working group, because they are the experts in that area, and they will be able to help us promote this. And we sent this notice also of the webinar to our institutions, because we noted that individuals may not have that power to bring the change needed in the health professions education at their institutions. But if we had the leaders also supporting with this, then we can have the change. And I must say that I've seen somebody from one of the institutions where we shared with the provost, and then they are also here to really listen. And others are also here. We are going to share even the recording with the institutions, apart from posting it on the website, so that they can reach out to you. And I want to also invite you to a symposium, because we haven't discussed that. So maybe after this session, we have to stay and then discuss how you can come to our symposium or get a representative there in August. It's just next 2 weeks that we are starting, so that we can talk about this good news also to our institutions, because a lot of our institution leaders will be coming, and they will need to hear about this. And I'm happy that there is translation. So somebody was even asking if we are going to translate this recording. Unfortunately, we are not. We are doing that. But at least when they go to the site, they'll be able to find information in their languages that we'll be able to work with. So let's talk about the symposium after this session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Georgina and Elsie, thank you so much for those contextualized comments. Well, from our standpoint, part of what the purpose of our engagement is also to learn about the needs. We feel that we have a very robust, engineering capabilities that can be brought to bear to address a global South needs, such as limited, access and so forth. But it does require guidance. From a strong partnership, so that we understand what those needs are and best engineer, for those, types of situations. We also see opportunities. We haven't even talked about artificial intelligence, but as you know, that's a huge disruptor and potentially can level the playing field. When we think about and transform the global north, global south type of relationships, to make them potentially even more equitable, and it could potentially go the other way too. There are equity issues with our artificial intelligence, the training models, and so forth. And so, and so we would be very keen to engage with all of you and with AFREhealth in terms of how we can take a disruptive technology like that and really bend it to the benefit and the deep needs, in education and in workforce training in Africa. I know we're at time, so I'm going to maybe wrap up and just thank you all, but for all your time. But I'm going to pass it back to Farzan.
Thank you, Tao. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure to moderate today, and we had a very lively discussion. There is a link in the chat for the webinar evaluation. So please, if you can, take some of your time out and just evaluate this webinar. And we wish you all the very best rest of the day, and hopefully look forward to hear from you in the near future. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.